Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Cool. Welcome to the week 5 Zoom session for ED 720. Happy Thanksgiving. Chat box is open if you have questions that you want to post in those or comments as we progress through the evening. Kudos to all of you for being committed learners. Thanks for joining this evening. I think you're all aware, as usual, I'll make a few comments here at the beginning and then I'll field questions from you if you have them. I think you're all aware now that the week 5 and week 6 modules are open over the holidays. So if you want to try to work ahead a little bit, you certainly can do that. My intention is to open the week 7 module probably in the middle of next week too, so you'll have more like a week and a half to work on that rather than just the final week. A comment about the learning repositories. Some of you may be comfortable with spreadsheets and some of you may not. But one of the reasons that I turn the collective wisdom of the whole group back to you is so that you'll have the ability to save that information and store it however you prefer to store for use either in later classes or also possibly even in your practice, either in the classroom or in leadership activities. One of the interesting possibilities, I don't want to insult your intelligence, but I invite you to consider this possibility is all of you, and I've even asked you in the week 5 discussion forum to identify some of your classmates that seem to be really pushing your thinking and raising your intellectual game. When you take a look at those learning repositories, you can download those and save them. You can even copy and paste them and create one if you wanted to, just because they're all formatted in the same way. And then you can sort by column, or you can sort by name of classmate. If you want to batch all the thinking of a particular classmate that's really seemed to resonate with you, you can do that. Or you can sort those submissions in those learning task repositories by column on subject matter or particular state. Some of you have rightly noticed that some states seem to be much more robust in their treatment of curriculum than others. I invite you to consider that possibility of downloading those repositories and using the search capabilities of that tool to help you, either in this term or in subsequent days, weeks to come. And for one thing, it might be very helpful to you, particularly if you have more classes to take in our program, or those of you that choose to chase a doctorate after you finish your master's degree. Could be very helpful to you down the road. Some of the content, I think you've also figured this out as well. Some of you have commented on it, both in your learning tasks and also in the discussion forums. Some of the content is far more socially connected than other academic content. For instance, chemistry or mathematics. You know, not particularly subject to the ebb and flow of the socio-economic, political, geopolitical environment, not too tightly connected to current events. But other disciplines, content areas like particularly, obviously, the social studies, but language arts, fine arts to a large degree, are highly aligned and tied to the social cultural milieu, and so those things have those things that are happening in the human environment have real implications for the curricula in those particular subject areas as they get revised and changed over time. MIDI, and I can't remember if it was in one of the learning task submissions or whether it was a discussion forum, but many and others have noted that some of the states that use the Common Core, even though they're using the same standards, particularly their district documents look and feel very different. Voila, yeah. One of the reasons that I've been dragging you through, particularly the school district comparative analysis on the curriculum, is I wanted you to get a good feel for how robust some of those school districts are in not only in their thinking about curriculum, but also in the way they present it. One of my favorite writers on the subject of leadership is a guy named Dr. John Gardner, actually General Dr. John Gardner. He served 7 different United States presidents in their administrations in one role or another. But Dr. Gardner, prolific writer on the topic of leadership, but he asserts or asserted when he was alive that the primary responsibility of leadership is to manage the attention of the organization. I think that holds true for you and I, particularly in school leadership roles. Also, absolutely, it holds true in the classroom when you're serving students. And it doesn't matter if the students are 4 years old or 14 years old or 54 years old, as some of you are. And also it's true for parents. But in our practice, in our professional endeavors, it's particularly true for you and I, those of you in leadership roles, and those of you that are pursuing your master's degree in C&I. You're going to find yourself, just because of your expertise that you're developing in this area, if you're not already considered a leader among your peers, you will be. And so as you and I attempt to influence not only the children that we serve, but the adults that are also serving those children, Dr. Gardner's advice and wisdom, I think, is worthy of our consideration. That however we can focus our efforts and our thinking, our words, our actions in a way that helps other people focus on the important stuff, it will create for a better learning environment and particularly better futures for our children. As we think about curriculum, and some of you have probably gone through some fairly formalized studies, maybe some readings or some faculty book studies of the writings of Rick Dufour and Becky Dufour, Bob Eaker. Those are the people that have basically made a cottage industry out of the concept of professional learning communities. A lot of people give them credit for inventing that, but no, great schools were always professional learning communities. But Rick Dufour, when they frame how we should approach the teaching and learning environment, particularly, this has implications for the curriculum, they insist that you can focus your attention around 4 primary questions. The first question is, what do we want our students to learn? And obviously that's a big one. What are we going to spend our time? What do we want them to learn? What do we want them to emerge with on the other side of this learning experience? And then the second question is, how will we know when they've learned it? And that cuts directly to the concept of assessment. It doesn't have to be formalized assessment, as you know, formative and summative in nature. And then the third question that the Dufours prompt us to consider as we think about the teaching and learning experience, and in our context, in this conversation with regard to curriculum, how will we respond if they don't learn? And that's where I think you'll see, some of you are seeing in those district curriculum documents, some of them have some very high quality intervention strategies that you can use for students who don't learn the curriculum on the first teach. And then finally, the fourth question that the Dufours pose to us as we consider the teaching learning experience is, what are we going to do? How do we respond if some of those students already know it? And this is the enrichment piece. How do we cause the learning to happen for those students at an enriched level if they already come to this lesson or to this school year or to this class with a pretty substantive knowledge base of the content already? And so those are four great questions. And I remember meeting the Dufors when I was a campus principal, a high school campus principal in Austin. We hosted a conference of theirs on our campus one year. And it was a great environment for our faculty, for sure. But it was very nice to be able to interact with those folks because they've been thought leaders in our field for at least 20 years now. I'm changing subjects on you now. Some of you are already working on the week 5 learning task. And when you get to learning task 5.3, I gave you 2 different resources on that one. And I know one of them is not particularly high quality, but I linked it in there for you because that even though the production of it is not particularly aesthetically pleasing, it's fairly simplistic. Looks like a PowerPoint maybe I would have created. But there's some interesting content in there about the logistical elements that are very helpful if you're trying to revise or roll out new curriculum. So I wanted you to be exposed to that content on the logistical and the process side of it. But I know it's not a great, highly polished presentation. Quite a few of you have experienced a little bit of heartburn when you were looking for the career and technology stuff. And I know with malice of forethought, I'm dragging all of you across a wide spectrum of content. For those of you that are going to be moving into school leadership roles, school administration roles, it will serve you well because you need to understand the broad landscape. But those of you that intend to stay in the classroom and stay on the front lines of the instructional process, I think it will be helpful to you also because we can learn a great deal from the way the different content areas package their product and try to deliver the product. And from a week 1 or 2, I can't remember if it was week 1 or 2, some of you got exposed to the thinking of John Dewey or re-exposed to the thinking of John Dewey and the whole concept of experiential learning. And so that career and technology piece is huge because basically that's the stuff that allows students to pursue. Almost always it's in the elective environment in the secondary students, either the middle school and particularly the high school level students. But it gives them the opportunity to learn and explore in those areas in which they have some particularly high interest. And it ranges across, I guess we'd have to think about it in terms of being across the vocational spectrums, but not necessarily just vocational, also avocational. Not a lot of people make their living in photography, but a lot of people have a hobby of photography. And in that career and technology spectrum, there's a huge menu of course offerings. If you just looked at the course offerings in the agricultural sciences alone, you would find a long menu of different kinds of courses that are offered there. But within each of those vocational and avocational areas, there are a wide number of course offerings and opportunities for students to hone their knowledge and polish their skills. Some of them, obviously, with the direct intent to try to make a living from those things at some point in time. That is the undergirding of what's been what we call STEM for the last, 15 years. Increasingly, they're adding an A to STEM and calling it STEAM. They're adding the arts back in, and I think wisely. But at the end of the day, most of that stuff is around trying to provide students some educational opportunities that give them prospect for employability. A particular small school that I've been working out here with in West Texas for the last several years, and one actually that I was a superintendent of an interim superintendent last school year of a small district out here that was trying to replicate the same model. Most of you that have worked in high school in that area are probably familiar with the phrase early college high school. And so this particular school district that I've been working with as on a consultant basis for the last few years, over the last 2 years, every senior they have graduated. Now think about this. Over the last 2 years, every senior they have graduated, except for 2, have graduated with a high school diploma and an associate's degree from a junior college. That's 60 college credit hours at no cost to the student or their parents. And that's fabulous, because that not only does that give those students a great head start on higher education, but in most of those cases, those students not only have that college associate's degree, most of them have some sort of industry certification to go with it, whether it's nursing tech or veterinary technician or drone pilot certification. It's a pretty remarkable model. If you want to poke around and look at for those people, you can look for the Roscoe Collegiate ISD website, and you'll find out all you want to about that. But most of what they're hinging their efforts on is beginning even in grade 3. They're building their curriculum around exploration, innovation, creation, students pursuing research questions. It's really kind of fun to watch what's going on, but always with an eye on how can they make the world a better place, and how can they create a better future for themselves in terms of employability through their learning experience. It's a pretty cool deal. I'm also force marching you, I know, through the wide array of the traditional academic curriculum, math, science, English, social studies, the classic liberal arts kind of offerings. And again, it's very, I think it's going to be very informative to you. Some of you, for instance, if you're a first grade teacher, you may never see yourself doing anything other than teaching first grade. But you never know. But I think even if that's the case, it would be most informative to you to take a look at what, for instance, middle school science curriculum looks like, and the way it's packaged, and the way the scope and the sequence flows. Because I think it can be very helpful to you, not only by seeing where your children are headed, but it will give you, I think, some helpful ideas on how to fashion not only your written content, your written curriculum, but the delivered curriculum. And if you play your cards right, it's the experience curriculum that the students experience on the backside. Packaging matters. Packaging matters a lot. Some of you have noticed, particularly as you've looked at different state curriculum and district curriculum, commented on the user friendliness of it, the clickability, the embellishments and the resources, the aesthetic nature, and the packaging matters a lot. And whether you intend to go into school leadership, for those of you in the leadership program, or whether you're just staying focused on the curriculum instruction side, for those of you in the C&I program, every one of us are to quote Daniel Pink, and I highly recommend anything he's written, but one of the books that Daniel Pink has written, I think you would find very much worth your time. The title of it is To Sell is Human. And he particularly talks about the field of education as really being a vocation of sales. We're trying to sell our students on something every time we walk in a classroom. We're trying to sell our colleagues on something, newer, better ways to cause learning to happen. We're trying to sell our community on the value of what we do every day. We're trying to sell our administrators on a particular kind of curriculum or approach to teaching, or integration strategies, however you want to fashion it. But my point is this: packaging matters a lot. And as you all know, I suspect. Flashy packaging sometimes just stops at the packaging, and there's no substance after the initial burst. But you have to catch the attention of the audience. You have to catch the attention of the audience. And I think some of you are noticing that when you're looking at those different state and school district curricula. The ones that catch your attention are the ones that are well polished and they're packaged well. As you begin to look deeper, you get to decide whether there's substance or not. But the ones that are not well polished or well packaged are the ones that leave not a great taste in your mouth from the get-go and are likely not to draw your attention subsequently. That's another reason I think you might find it helpful to download somehow the learning repositories, and I'm even going to ask you in the discussion forum in week 7. I'm going to ask you to identify for us what some of the state content that you consider to be particularly high quality or gold standard, if you will. Okay, I'm going to quit yakking. I'm just yabbering. Y'all got turkeys to cook or go chasing or hunt or whatnot. I hunt turkey just off my front porch here at the ranch, so I don't really have to go looking for them. They come up to me. But or some of you may go to Walmart to get your turkey. Those are the easiest ones to catch. Let me shut up. The chat box is open. If you have questions, I see one I'll address here in just a second. Let me take my notes off the screen so I can see those of you that are looking back at me. Andy, I saw your email right before we started the class about week 4, and I'll go back in there and see if I can figure out what's wrong. I'll try to get that thing alive. Have any of the others of you that are in the class this evening, have any of you tried to look at the week 4 Zoom session that was recorded and been able to? One time a listen to me jabber is enough, right, Noel?
Somebody else had commented on it as well.
No, I was on the meeting.
Okay. I don't know what's going on. I'll see if I can get that link hot where y'all can get back to it if you want to.
Was there anything out of the norm on it?
Pardon?
Was there anything that was out of the norm from the regular class discussion?
My usual bullshit is all same old stuff for me.
I just wanted to make sure that I was able to go back and catch the good stuff that you're putting out there for us.
There you go. Anybody else got questions about content? Questions about problems of practice? I don't care what you ask me. Fire away.
I wanted to ask about the final. Is there a certain format you want that in a certain format? Or are you going to post something for us to respond?
But thanks for that question, Amy. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
The format is going to be like your other learning task. It's coming at you in a Google form. And so the first part of it's going to say, tell me your top 10 learnings from the course, and it'll be like a paragraph box like you've been filling in. And then the subsequent questions are going to be downstream. And same thing in the Google form, one at a time. I'm going to, for those of you in the leadership program, I'm going to say, what learning task or learning activity or conversation did you have that's most highly aligned to ELCC standard number 1, which is vision. And for those of you, those that are in the CNI program, the directions will say, if you're in the CNI program, just put NA on this one and then go to the next. And so you will have 7 ELCC standards and then 5 National Board standards for teaching standards. I didn't say that right. National Board Professional Teaching Standards. There's 5 of those. So whichever program you're in, you're going to address that, but it's going to come at you in a Google form. Structurally, it's going to be just like you've been getting. Thanks for the question. Other questions if you got them.
I do have a question.
Okay.
For the final, typically that last week, everything is due earlier than typical. Is that when is everything due?
I'm gonna ask you to have it done by midnight Saturday night instead of midnight Sunday night.
Okay.
But you know, I'm not going to kick anybody out of the program if they don't get it done. What LSU does to me is they give me a 10 a.m. Monday morning deadline to get grades. And so that's another reason I'm going to open week 7 a little bit early.
Okay.
I've got 75 or 76 of you in the course this time. So there's quite a lot of stuff for me to read through. And I think you all are aware, even though when I don't comment on your submissions, if you write it, I read it. I am not one of those professors that skips it. So I get to learn a lot from you all. It takes a little time for me to get through it.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions?
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Could you suggest possibly when it comes down to doing the district curriculums, you know, and I try to look around and not pick something super similar, but sometimes I know I struggle with trying to, I guess, locate, you know, their exact curriculum, and they're kind of dancing around to it. And then you get to a page that says contact such and such.
Right.
Or like I started the grade 5 science earlier, and I'm using 2 areas that are a little bit more similar, but they're very large school districts. Even though they're both using the next generation science standards. Mm-hmm. One of them actually puts them up. The other one, it's not being put up. So do you have any suggestions possibly, or maybe I don't know. Do you have any suggestions on maybe some school systems that we should look at least once?
No, I don't have any suggestions for particular school systems. If you're struggling to find some, a suggestion that I do have for you is to peek back into the previous learning repositories on that number 5 learning task, because some of your classmates have identified, they've struggled like you have, and some of them have actually found some school districts that have some pretty good curriculum posted. So you can stand on the shoulders of your classmates if
right.
you keep running into a wall on that.
Yeah, I mean, I bounce around and stuff, and I try not to do the same state or, you know, the same area twice. And, you know, it's just amazing, I guess, how much that, like you'd said earlier, some really put together a good package and some don't.
Right. And, you know, some of them, I don't know if you all are Jim Gaffigan fans or not. I'm a Jim Gaffigan fan, but he's, you know, he talks about Waffle House. You know, it's like they're not even trying. And so it's like some of those school districts are not even trying, but some of them really put together some nice tools, some very great tools. Other questions? Okay, well, if you have to travel, my condolences, and I hope you manage to travel safely. If you have family coming to your home, my condolences. They usually start smelling like fish on day 2 or day 3. But I hope you manage to get through that as gracefully and without harm to anyone in the process. No, and I hope you all get the opportunity to spend a little time with the people you love and that love you. And mostly, I hope you have the opportunity to get a little rest. I have not forgotten the world that you live in. Glad it's behind me. But, I know you all got your boat loaded. Safe travels. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for making me a better educator. Good night.